G'day guys, welcome to another episode of The Tripod, and as we do not have any NRL or any live sport pretty much on at the moment, we've decided to do something a little bit different today. Me and Jacob have been talking over the last few days how we could make the NRL greater or better than it is at the moment, a better product for not only players but fans as well. So we're going to go through a few ideas. Not all of these ideas are our original rule changes, but some of them are and some of them aren't. So we're going to go through a few today and let you know what we think about those rule changes, if we think they would make the games better. And we'll have some original ideas in there as well. Jacob, anything you want to add before we get started? You did have a rule change that you posted a couple of days ago, and we might go through that one briefly today again as well.
Yeah, that's the rule about stopping teams giving away penalties on their line, and I went through that in depth. We might touch on that, but check out that video on Rugby League Zero Fucks Given. As you said, these aren't all our ideas, so thank you for the people who contributed with their suggestions, and some of them have made this list, and this should be a fun one. Now, we've got some serious footy withdrawal symptoms, and yes, I'll take footy in any shape or form. You know, I don't care what the rules are, but this is just a bit of brainstorming, and just in a perfect world, whether, you know, we've got this opportunity to reflect a little bit. Here are some suggestions. We're not going to agree with them all, but we're going to give just purely our opinion. Feel free to share yours. If you agree with a rule change that comes up on the screen, smash the like button or the heart button. If you disagree, smash that anger button.
And likewise, if you have any rule changes that we haven't gone through in this pod, make sure you comment them, because we might do another one of these. If there's enough rule changes that we get from you guys, we might do another one. Let's get started, Jacob. The first one we're going to go through is the free play. Now, I guess I'll just explain it quickly for those that, you know, don't kind of know what we're talking about. We're talking about a free play when the opposition makes a mistake, knocks on, and then the opposition team that picks it up gets a free play from there if nothing eventuates, and they go back, play the ball for a full set of 6. Jacob, go.
And for me, it's a no-brainer. So we already partially have this rule in the NRL. It's called no advantage, where if a team picks up a ball on zero tackle after the opponent made an error, they usually can do something with it. And if they end up dropping it or making a mistake themselves, usually the ref calls no advantage. All this does is makes it crystal clear. If you get the ball after the opponent made an error, you can do literally anything. I mean, why not? Let's have a flick pass. Let's have a triple cutout. Let's have a chip and chase. I know they used it in the Super League, and I believe they only then reverted back to align with the NRL rules. For me, it's a no-brainer. Why not have the free play?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And you're right. At the moment, what we've got is essentially advantage. But it's a grey line of when you have advantage and when you don't. And like you said, this makes it very clear. I think that, you know, most of these rules that I agree with would just make the game a more entertaining product. And this makes it a more entertaining product. There's nothing worse than you see a knock-on, players sort of lounging around, no one really goes for the ball. But in this case, every single time there's a mistake, then it's just like, oh shit, you know, the defense has to get ready straight away, and you get a full play until the player is tackled to do whatever the fuck you want. You'd see all sorts of shit, chip chases, spreading it wide early. I think it's a great idea. Let's move on to the next one. Let me just reset this clock here. We did pretty good with the 2 minutes, Jacob. The next idea is that the clock stops after all tries or all stoppages. Jacob, do you have an opinion on this, or somewhere in between?
Speaking of clock stoppages, for people who are just listening to this, we're borrowing a segment or a gimmick. I don't know if we should say the show we're copying for copyright reasons, but there's going to be a timer going with every topic as we talk about this to keep us on track. I'm for stopping the clock, because I hate when a team scores with like a minute to go or 30 seconds to go, a minute and a half, and it's unclear how many seconds are going to wind off the clock till the other team gets it back. Or, you know, when they take a shot at goal, you know, to milk clock in the last 5 minutes of a game. For me, just stop it then and there. If you're having a shot at goal or if a try is scored, then it's clear we know how long to go. And it ultimately means slightly more footy of actual game action for the fans.
Yeah, what are we doing? Just stop the fucking clock, especially after tries. Look, all stoppages might be a bit tricky. I think that would be the ideal outcome. But I think at the very least, you have to stop the clock after a try is scored and until the ensuing kickoff has happened. And also, if a team chooses to take a penalty shot for goal, you have to stop the clock there as well. There is nothing worse than these players throwing bunches of grass in the air, lining the ball up, taking a minute plus sometimes. And it really takes away from the game, I think. Another thing that you would get is if you get a late try in the final, 30 seconds of a game and a team's down a couple of scores, then, you get that added excitement of not just having, a crappy shot for goal, but you get another full set possibly. So I think that's a great rule change that they certainly should implement. I don't know why they haven't done that already. This is kind of going off your one from yesterday, Jacob, but look, we've had a lot of issues with, teams giving away penalties inside the 20 to get their line reset. The Melbourne Storm are well known for this. Would you change the rule that we currently have, Jacob? Because there's a lot of uncertainty around the kind of 3 penalties in a row sin bin type thing.
Yeah, and to me, this is a big one. And I did actually a comprehensive breakdown of this, about 5 or 6 minutes, explaining how I do the rule. So I'd encourage people to look at that video. You let me know what you think. I mean, within a small variation of it, it's basically just at the second that a penalty is blown inside the 20, the player that caused the infringement is sent behind their in goal until the end of the set.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. We exchanged ideas about these ones, and this was kind of the one idea that we thought would make the game a lot better, because it has become kind of a trend in the NRL at the moment, teams giving away that pen so they get a little bit of a rest and can reset their line. But you're right, losing a player giving away a penalty in the 20 is a huge disadvantage, and that could certainly add to more, excitement, more tries, and teams going for tries more often than penalty goals, which I think most fans would like to see. Let's move on to a little quick one. This shouldn't take too long, but we've talked about this a number of times, Jacob, but the referee forced to send a try up, try or no try. Should there be an allowance for them to just send it up and say, I don't fucking know what happened. Let the video ref decide.
Yeah, in reality, probably yes. There's multiple examples, but a grubber goes in the in goal, a couple players dive for it, and there's fingertips, and it happens in a split second, and the ref's meant to say whether he saw a clean try or no try, and he doesn't know, so he has a guess. But the problem is, when the video ref reviews it, quite often they take the soft option, which is, I don't see enough evidence to overturn. I hate that. You got 10 different angles. You got slow motion. You can make a better judgment than what the ref who had one angle and saw it in real time can do. So you should use your best judgment. You're paid to officiate on rugby league and give us the most likely what you believe is the correct call. So if anything, I would say whether the ref sends it up as a try or no try, I think the video ref just has to have some balls and make the decision what they truly believe happened, not lean back to the on-field decision, which could have just been a guess.
Yeah, and I understand the rule that you need to, have pretty much indisputable evidence in order to overturn it, but I think it's wrong. The referee on the field is looking at this in real time. There's bodies flying everywhere. He can't see, split-second decisions that are happening on the field. So, look, I think that he should definitely be able to send it up no try. And like you said, even if he sends it up try or no try, if the video ref is looking at 10 different angles in super slow motion, and he's 70% sure that he disagrees with the on-field decision, then just overturn the decision. The video ref is going to see it 100 times better than the on-field ref. So just let the bunker do their job, because it's going to be more accurate. Now, this is an interesting one, Jacob. Extra time format. There has been a little bit of contention about this one. People complain that, it's just basically a field goal, kick-off in extra time. Anything that you would change, would you leave it the same?
Yeah, I would change it, and I reckon this would merit its own whole segment. So we're going to put our heads together, and there's lots of suggestions, but I am for making it golden try. I don't like the fact that it is a field goal shootout and that the refs swallow their whistle and don't enforce, offside, don't enforce the 10 metres, don't really enforce the ruck properly, and it's a bit of a free-for-all. So I think it should be golden try, but the problem is that could go on too long. So I support a measure of dropping off players again, whether you drop back a couple of players and you drop off a player every few minutes until we get a try. We're going to get one eventually. Whether you instantly make the extra time 9-on-9 and bring in, that context of the game that we have where we've got nines tournaments every so often, that would be my way of doing it.
Yeah, I do like that idea, and I've got probably a little bit of a crazier idea that's borrowed from college football over in the States. But wouldn't this be fun? Let me know what you think, Jacob. You get to extra time. The attacking team starts with the ball on the 20-metre line. They get a full set of 6. Let's say they score a try. The other team gets a chance to rebuttal, and they have to score a try in order to keep extra time going. If the first team doesn't score any points in their set of 6, then the opposition team just has to score 1 or more points on their set in order to win extra time. I kind of like that, and I don't think that you'd get it go for too long, and you would get a winner.
I don't necessarily agree with that. The team that goes first seems to be at a big disadvantage, and I feel like on fifth tackle they might want to kick the one because otherwise they know the other team gets pretty much a free shot at a one to beat them. So you might just be still inciting conservative play and field goal shots even with that idea.
Well, the thing is with the college football one, you go, team A goes first, and then the next set they go second. So it's kind of a snake draft type thing. So
yeah, but if the first team goes first and tries to score a try and doesn't, the second team just gets to camp their 5 tackles and kick a field goal.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Which is exactly what happens in college football, and I do like that. It seems to make it more exciting. All right, tap and go changes, Jacob. Anything that you would change in terms of the ruling on tap and go and when players are allowed to actually tap and go?
I've got a bit of an out-of-the-box one. I reckon that every time that a team taps and goes, you get 7 tackles. So we already have a 20-meter restart is a tap, and it's essentially 0 tackle when they tap the ball. So that way when a team gets a penalty like on their own 30, own 40, usually you're going to kick for touch, kick for yardage, and get the ball 20 or 30 meters down the field and then tap, and it's first tackle. So why not just make it a simple rule? Every time the ball is tapped, it's 7 tackles. That also does help with giving away penalties on the try line, whereas if a defense gives away a penalty, then the attacking team doesn't really kick for touch, or there's no benefit in that. I know sometimes they'll kick it backwards 5 meters for a run-up, whatever, but if you could tap and go and get a 7 tackle set, there's just that little bit more deterrent about giving away penalties.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I think we want to see, as fans, we probably want to see more tap and goes. They lead to, a bit more faster game flow and a few more opportunities. So I actually have another idea as well in terms of the tap and go. At the moment, you can't take a quick tap if any of your players on your team are in front of you for the tap. I say we scrap that. You're allowed to tap and go even if players are in front of you. They just can't get involved for that play. And I think that'll speed up the game and bring more opportunities and just make it a little bit more exciting, which at the end of the day is what fans want. Next up, we've got, and this is, I think, this was your idea, Jacob. I think you may have borrowed from someone, but the finals format. And I should maybe just run through quickly what you're kind of, talking about in terms of the 10 teams. So changing the finals format to 10 teams. So we've got an idea here that the top 10 teams would actually get into the finals, and then you would have a playoff between teams 7 through 10. 7 would play 10, 8 would play 9, and that would be a wild card round, and the 2 teams that won those games would move into the actual finals. Jacob, go. Is this a good idea?
Yeah, and it's not my idea. I think literally the NRL has even suggested they might do this, but I threw this out to you because I actually am for it. And I know the argument against it. It's a 16-team comp and you want to let 10 teams in. You could lose more games than you win in a season and still make the finals. It doesn't seem fair, and you want to have a good weighting on the regular season. But the thing is, we've got a salary cap. We've got a pretty even competition, and the truth is usually the teams that just miss the finals and finish 9th or 10th usually aren't that much worse than the teams that get in 7th or 8th. So I don't think there's a big drop-off. Now, the AFL, they have a bye week right after their regular season finishes, and they don't play any games the week after, and then so it's 14-day turnaround till the finals. It means that everyone gets to recuperate, refresh, and you get a higher quality finals. It also means more teams have more life in their season for longer. If top 10 gets into the finals, it just means less meaningless games in the last month of the footy season because there's a bit more hope for fans. And if you're going to say it's not fair because the team shouldn't come 9th or 10th and win the comp, they're not going to win the comp. They're never going to win the comp. They'd have to win 5 straight away games to finish 9th or 10th. It's still a huge advantage to those teams that get that bye in the top 6, and then obviously top 4 get a chance for another bye. So I love the way it tiers it out, and I think there's plenty of incentive to finish higher on the ladder. I love the idea.
I actually like it too, and I think the main factor is just getting those teams that are, sitting around that 10th to 12th spot on the ladder, because generally the ladder is fairly bunched, then you don't get those teams giving up in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks of the comp, which I think is only a good thing. And it means pretty much, the majority of the teams are going to be playing right down to the bitter end, because the NRL is one of the closest comps in the world. And not only that, you get a couple of extra games of footy, which is never a bad thing, in my opinion.
Knockout footy.
Yeah, exactly. And this is an interesting idea, Jacob. Now, for the finals, the higher seed gets to choose their opposition. So basically how this would work, instead of just going straight off the ladder, if the Sydney Roosters finished number 1, they would get to choose their opponent out of whoever finished 3rd and 4th on the ladder. Jacob, go.
So you'd still have a top 4 and then a next 4. So it's not an open slather. And I think that if you start at the very top, team number 1 can, as you say, can choose to play either 3rd or 4th. And then team number 2 gets the other one.
Correct.
When you get down to 5 and 6, 5 can pick their opponent out of 7 and 8. So you're not taking away anybody's advantage like number 1 can't choose number 2 to screw them out of a home final. But it just gives you one extra bit of incentive. It encourages rivalries. It encourages a bit of spite because you can have a team saying, oh, they wanted to play us. But I think it also rewards you slightly more for finishing higher on the ladder because we all know certain teams get hot, get cold, injuries are a factor. So why not let teams choose their opponent? Look at last year, the Storm won the minor premiership, got rewarded with the Raiders first week of the finals. Now, it was a cracking game, but if they could have chosen, they would have chosen a Bunnies team that didn't have Sam Burgess and then slightly was sliding into the finals. So it would have been quite different, really. And I think it just adds an extra wrinkle that would make it more exciting too.
How fun would it be? This could be a 1-hour show on Fox Sports that you do, basically the draft or the teams choosing each other, and it would be fucking entertaining. And for us as bettors as well, it would be very interesting, I think, because, we always complain about how some teams are, dumb for making certain on-field decisions, but it would be super interesting to see which teams chose which teams, because us as bettors, we would kind of know, you choose this team, you're going to be a 4-point favourite probably. You choose another team, you're going to be a 6-point favourite. And it would be so interesting to see if teams actually chose correctly or made mistakes. I think it would be a great idea. And like you said, extra incentive to finish top. All right, Jacob, should you need more judiciary points to miss big games such as State of Origin and the finals?
Yeah, and I think this is a no-brainer, and I've heard this one before. It always comes about when a key player misses an Origin game or misses a prelim or a grand final for judiciary reasons, for getting suspended. And to me, like, those games are so much bigger and higher stakes. They're not like a normal regular season game where a player can accept and plead guilty and miss 1 or 2 games throughout a season, but they don't want to do that for an Origin or a grand final. So why wouldn't you just make those games take more points to have to miss them? Seems like it's still a high price to pay. I think missing 1 or 2 regular season games is easily equivalent to missing a grand final. So why are they all considered one game?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think in terms of like a percentage-wise, if you needed 100% of points to miss a regular season game, maybe you'd need 120 or 130% to miss one of those larger State of Origin or the finals games. I think that's definitely a fair point because, like you said, they are way more massive. And I mean, it's tough to see when some players. It rarely happens, but I mean, when some players get that accrual of judiciary points and they miss a huge game like State of Origin or the finals for some shitty reason where they've done something small and it's just the points have added up for them. Next up. You mentioned this one to me, Jacob. I think it's been floated around, but a World Series with, instead of Australia being one powerhouse team, we'd split that into Queensland and New South Wales, and they would play, some of those smaller countries like Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, etc.
Yeah, this was a bit radical, and this is an idea I have had personally for years, and I've never heard anyone else say it, and I told you on Monday, and within hours I saw an article on a New Zealand sports site saying someone has suggested this. The problem with when Australia plays, and I know the last time Australia played, they lost to Tonga, which I loved, and I was cheering for Tonga, and that's part of the problem. Why would we be cheering against our own country? But I know lots of people who love rugby league who would often support New Zealand when they play Australia because they just want to see a higher quality game. Australia's too good compared to everyone else, especially now that these Islander players, who are Tongan or Samoan heritage, are defecting from New Zealand. It's even tougher for them. But what we do have a true passion with, and what a lot of people say is the highest pinnacle of the game, is State of Origin. Why not let Queensland and New South Wales, just as a novelty, like a one-off showcase, event, maybe every few years, which would be a bit of a hybrid event. Let Queensland and New South Wales compete separately. Those two sides are still absolutely quality, as we know. Get Great Britain in there, get, maybe New Zealand, maybe even combo of the island teams. Obviously, you've got PNG, Fiji, Tonga, Samoa. That could be a hell of a competition. I just think it'll be super exciting. And if you're a Queenslander, you're going to be cheering for Queensland every game, and you're going to be cheering against New South Wales every game. Yeah,
bloody oath. And I think it's a great idea. It would make it super exciting, and it would be a super close comp. And what I would say as well is that it would kind of allow, like you said, a few of those Australian players are defecting to play for those smaller island countries. But I'd say for this standalone sort of type of comp, you could just defect if you were, Aussie and you had some ties to one of those smaller island nations. For this tournament, you could defect with no future repercussions, and I think it would be a super close comp. Next up. Now, this was an idea floated in one of the comments to our post. We were asking for some ideas, and they said the bottom two teams on the ladder in the NRL drop out to be replaced with the New South Wales and Queensland Cup winners of that year.
So that's an interesting idea, and essentially the overall idea is promotion and relegation. And I like the concept of it. It certainly works well in a big sporting competition like the English Premier League, but I just don't think it works in the NRL because we've seen what's happening with this current, crisis with the clubs needing to have foundations. They need to have money behind them. Each club kind of has a franchise license, whereas I don't know, like from season to season, which team might win the Queensland Cup or win the reserve grade in New South Wales. I don't know if that warrants getting promoted to the NRL. Look at the Parramatta Eels. Didn't they get the wooden spoon a couple of years ago? And now they, one of the favourites to win the comp this year. Would you really boot them out? And then what happens to Wankbest Stadium and their supporter base? What happens to contracts that players have signed? Now, maybe a variation of this, I'm not saying I'm for it, but I'll throw it out there. Maybe over a certain number of years, if a certain club remains at the cellar over like a 3-year period, their license would be under pressure. But again, a lot of these clubs that play in the New South Wales or Queensland Cups are already affiliated with a first grade side anyway, so it would be quite complicated. I'm not for relegation promotion.
It's tough for me. I've probably got a couple of questions about this, and you follow the English Premier League a bit more than me, Jacob, but obviously it happens over there. But do you know exactly how that happens? Because let's say a player's on a 5-year contract in the NRL and their team gets relegated. Like, there's not that much, there's no money in second grade in the NRL, so how would they pay those players, or how does it even work in the EPL? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like each club is going to have some money behind them. They talk about parachute payments. So when a club gets relegated, they still get like some revenue share from the fact they were in the Premier League, which might help. But often players will get a release or have clauses in their contract that if we get relegated, I can move back up to a top tier. So It does happen for sure, but it's something that they have to factor in when players sign contracts for a team that could be, fringe or could have the possibility of being relegated.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And then the next one, this is a simple one, simply changing the 13 on 13 to 12 on 12.
I don't see a need for that. I don't know. I feel like if you're doing 12 on 12, you're essentially taking out one middle forward. I think 13 on 13 is perfectly fine, but if we can maybe tweak a few rules here and there to just allow a faster and more flowing game, I think we still get holes opening up, line breaks. We still get nice attacking footy.
I actually like it, and I know that, a lot of historians will say, fuck it, it's been 13 for as long as they can remember. Why change it? But I kind of go back to cricket, and, we had test matches, and then we had one-dayers, and, fans were kind of, moving away from cricket in terms of just it was, a lot of fans sort of found it boring. They tried to find a way to make it more exciting, and they made it 2020. And I remember when that happened, every cricket tragic was saying this is the dumbest idea ever, but it brought so many more fans to the game, so many more casual fans to the game, just solely by, one little change that made the game more exciting. And I think this is a change that, in and of itself would, instantly make the game more exciting.
If you say so. I mean, you don't watch rugby sevens. I mean, how many players you want to drop off and it result in more points? I feel like you still want to make it harder. Yeah, it comes down to what is the sweet spot of number of players on the field. But I'm happy with 13 if we can get the game flowing more.
All right, and the last one we're going to go through, Jacob, before we go into a quick fire round is, should we bring in 5-minute sin bins? Now, what we mean by this is essentially you would still keep the 10-minute sin bin, but maybe a 5-minute sin bin for something less egregious.
Yeah, there's that, or you just replace the 10 with a 5. And the argument for either way having an option of a 5-minute sin bin is refs would use them a bit more often. So it's another possible solution to ill-discipline of sides that are giving away repeat penalties, the ref would be a little bit less hesitant to just send a bloke off for 5 minutes. So I actually do like that concept. I guess I worry that, 5 minutes can go by pretty quickly if a team with the ball makes a mistake, or, when you get the ball going out and packing scrums, they might only get a set or two and not necessarily many in attack against, the opponent with one less player. So, but the counter argument is that having a player off for 10 minutes can absolutely kill a team and really, take a lot of juice out of them in that period. So I don't mind a 5 minute sin bin.
Yeah, I don't mind it either. And I think, 5 minutes isn't that long. But once again, we're kind of saying that, with that rule change that you talked about, Jacob, giving away a penalty in the 20, you lose a player for a set. That's already a minute. So this would be one step up from that, but not quite as bad as a 10-minute sin bin. What I would say is you'd really have to make the rule very crystal clear in terms of what penalties were 5 minutes and what penalties were 10. Because if you give the ref complete, control over if he decides it's 5 or 10, it's just going to be too confusing for the players and the fans, and you're going to get just people getting pissed off when one's a 5 minute and one's a 10. So I think in order for that to work, you really would have to make it crystal clear on what penalties were 5 and what were 10.
And that goes for a lot of these rules. You actually do need to think, how would the refs apply it? It's easy for us to say, oh, this should be this should be that, but you've got to think practically as well. And that's why it is important to try and add some clarity, make it easier for the officials. Because if you make the officials' lives harder, they're going to make more mistakes, and None of us like seeing refs screw up.
Yes, absolutely. Jacob, quick fire round. Let's go through these ones really quickly. These are just a few rule changes / ideas that probably we wouldn't want to talk about for a full 2 minutes. So it's just yes or no questions here. You can say a sentence on it if you feel the need. Jacob, quarters instead of halves.
No, I don't see why you'd go to quarters.
I actually like the idea, so I'm going to say yes to the quarters instead of halves. Forward passes reviewable by the video ref.
Yeah, I don't see why not. We all see replays and see, oh, geez, that was a forward pass. So if we can tell, why can't the bunker? I know the argument against it, but you can tell if a ball's thrown backwards or forwards. They should be able to review it for scoring plays.
Yeah, 100% they should be able to review it. I actually want to do something even more drastic. I won't go into detail, but I want to change the rule about what constitutes a forward pass. But certainly I think that the video ref should be allowed to review on that. An increased salary cap to retain long-term players.
Yeah, I threw this idea out there. I think you want to increase loyalty. You want to give teams an extra bargaining chip to keep players. Everyone loves when players stay at the same club for a longer time rather than chopping and changing, because fans can build that emotional connection to players. We all love one club players. So let a team go a little bit over the cap only if it's retaining a player. And it can be if a player's with a club for 5 years, 7, 9, whatever, the club can pay a little bit extra percentage above the cap in that player's next contract.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. They should be allowed to do that. We see it all the time, and a major complaint from fans is that these players are chopping and changing all the time. So this would remove some of that for sure. You floated this one, Jacob. If a team scores a try in their first 3 tackles of the set, is it a 5-point try, or should it be?
Yeah, and this isn't my idea. This was one that came through. I don't think it should, but what it's trying to achieve is teams not playing conservatively for the set and setting up for the kick, so rewarding a try earlier in the set. But then I thought, what if you take an intercept? And then you're going to go under the post and score and get 7?
Yep.
It doesn't seem right. I don't like that one. Then a variation of that is, what about tries only off a kick are worth 3 instead of 4, and then still with a conversion for 2? And that's interesting to me, because I don't feel like scoring off a grubber in behind that deflects a couple of times, or off a bomb, which is going to be even easier with the tackle in the air rule. Don't know if that is worth exactly the same as a legit line break try. So I'm more interested in 1 less point for a try for kick.
Yep, and I'm going to say I don't like the 5-point try in the first 3 tackles, and I probably would disagree with you. I would not want a 3-point try off a kick. Another one that's been floated around, bringing back the shoulder charge into the game, Jacob, yes or no?
Well, I love it. I hated it when they took it out, but the problem is you want the next generation of kind of parents that are bringing their kids through and deciding what sport they play to choose rugby league, so you have to take measures to keep it safer. And taking shoulder charges out, I guess, reduces the amount of dangerous contact to head and neck, so I don't think it's coming back, sadly.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We'd love to see it as much fun as it was, but I can't see it coming back. Just the increased risk of injury. they're not going to want that back in the game. And this is an interesting one. Now, if a team is trying to score in the act of scoring and they knock the ball on in the in goal, the opposition should not get a 7-tackle set for that.
I'm happy with that because the rule was brought in to stop teams negatively just trying to kick the ball dead out the back and not allow the opponent to kind of let their fullback run it back and take the ball out of play. It wasn't designed to penalise a team for trying to score. So I'd be happy that you don't get a 7-tackle set.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a good rule change. Next up, these are a few that were floated into the comments. Just take away the video ref and teams get 1 challenge per half.
No, I disagree with that. I think that when a try is scored or possibly scored, there is a natural stoppage in the game. You've got time, you've got the technology and the camera angles. I'd rather they do look at it. They could be a bit quicker, but I want them to look at it and get it right. If you just leave it in the hands of a team to challenge, what about all those sideline ones, those bang-bang ones? They don't know whether to challenge or not. There's going to be incorrect decisions made, or if you've already used your challenge, you can't. We're just going to end up with more wrong tries, either awarded or not awarded. So leave the video ref alone for tries.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the video ref is a good addition to the game. Whenever we can get more calls right than wrong, it's always a good thing. But like you said, just needs to be more efficient. And if I had it my way, I would have the video ref getting involved in more calls, but just making it quicker so they could get it done sort of between plays and stuff like that. The next one that was floated was just to completely ban third-party agreements.
No, I don't think you can ban. So the reason people might want them banned is it's an unfair advantage to certain clubs. I mean, certain teams in certain markets. You look at the Brisbane Broncos, they got a bigger membership base. They play more games Friday night. That logo is going to be shown more times, and a player that's a star for that team is going to get more exposure than a player who plays for the Titans. And therefore, Broncos players are going to have, more lucrative third-party arrangement deals. Yes. But if you take it away, they're going to start looking at other sports that don't kind of limit the player's market value. So we want to keep superstars in the game. Third-party agreements are part of it. So it is a tough one. It's always going to favour the richer clubs. But for now, I think we have to live with it.
Yeah, I think we do too. And like you said, it kind of helps, keep players in NRL and not head overseas or switch codes. Bring back the biff, Jacob. As much as we would like to see it, can we do it?
It's probably like the shoulder charge. We all love to see it, but you understand why they kind of want to wipe it out of the game. So I don't really know how you're going to go about bringing it back. Are you going to say, this season, if a punch is thrown, the suspensions are going to be reduced again? I don't think that sends the right message, unfortunately.
I've seen a lot of people sort of compare it to the NHL, but I think, and as good as that is, it's so fun when a lot of people sort of watch the NHL to watch a fight. The difference is these guys are wearing padded gloves and helmets. It's a lot different in the NRL. I don't think you can just let 2 blokes go at it until some guy's comatose on the ground. No 7-tackle set for a missed field goal, Jacob.
I disagree with that because I don't think we're trying to encourage field goals. I think since it is a 7-tackle set, if you miss a field goal and it goes dead, teams actually take them a little bit less. You don't see teams kick a field goal when they're up 6 as much these days to try and go up 7 because you're risking letting the other team march down the field with an extra tackle. So I'd leave that the way it is.
Yeah, and it's a funny one because with some of the other rule changes that we've talked about, maybe that would fix that. Because you're right, what you don't want to see is just a field goal off in the last 10 minutes of regular time or in the 10 minutes of extra time, that's for sure. So, that kind of fixes that a little bit. So you should get, you should get a little bit of a, I guess, punishment for just firing away at field goals. But I think some of our other rule changes would fix that without having to take that rule out of the game. And the last one we'll go through, Jacob, that 3 penalties in a row anywhere by the same team is an automatic sin bin. And maybe this could be a 5-minute sin bin. What do you think?
I'd probably say no because, what if they give away a penalty in the 4th, the 11th, and the 33rd minute, and they're all different infringements, one's, the tackle in the air, one's a high shot that kind of was a bit careless. And the ref's got to have to keep, in their mind that a certain team's had certain number of penalties in a row, and it could have just been because subjectively they didn't award a 50-50 to the other team during that span that would have broken the 3 in a row. So I don't think that is quite. I get what it's trying to achieve, but I think we've come up with better solutions to achieve the repeat penalty issue.
Yeah, I think we have as well. And I guess my thing with this one is you either have to do what this guy's saying, 3 penalties in a row is an automatic sin bin for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, or you take it completely out. Because, what we have at the moment with, those 3 penalties in a row on the goal line, it's such a grey area and the refs are not enforcing it the same every time that I think that's where the frustration comes from. So I would say, either you take that away and say, look, 3 penalties in a row on the goal line doesn't matter. You use one of our rules that we've done, or you say, look, 3 penalties in a row is a definite sin bin, just so everyone, fans and players, know what you're doing and it's crystal clear for them. That's it, Saka. We're done. Let us know what you guys think.
That was good.
That was good. 35 minutes, not too bad. Let us know what you guys think in the comments if you have any other rule changes or ideas that you would like to add to the game. If you agree, if you disagree with any of the stuff we've gone through in this pod. And Jacob, anything else that you wanted to add before we get out of here?
No, as we said, these are our opinions, but we really welcome everyone else's opinion as we've got the time. So let's talk about what we like, what we don't like. And we all love this game. It's not about criticising the sport, but it's about just ideas making it better. And it's not, as you've heard us discuss, it's not all rule changes. It's finals formatting. We talked about, the salary cap and lots of other issues that certainly can be better. So why not throw some radical ideas out there? Please let us know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. And once again, thanks for tuning in. And look, hopefully this will all be behind us soon enough and we will have footy back on our TV screens in no time. Until then, we'll catch you next time. See you guys.
Legal.